on my regular mashed potato recipe. I'm very, very excited about it. Now when I mash potatoes, I turn the heat on under the pot. It's just on low, and the heat allows more steam to escape so that when you stir all the mashed potato ingredients together, they don't get gummy. One of the greatest things I ever learned from my mother-in-law, Nan, was this recipe for mashed potatoes. She always makes them ahead of time, sometimes 2 or 3 days ahead of time. And because of all the ingredients in the dish, they always bake up just beautifully. I very rarely make mashed potatoes at the last minute now. Okay, I think those are properly mashed. So now it's time for the good stuff. I'm gonna turn off the heat, and I'll add a couple of sticks of very soft butter. As soon as the butter hits those potatoes, it's just gonna start melting everywhere. I've also got some softened cream cheese. It adds such beautiful fat and flavor. Speaking of fat and flavor, I'm also adding some heavy cream. I always joke with Nan, I just don't know why your mashed potatoes are so delicious. This is part of it. I'll add plenty of salt and pepper. And by plenty of pepper, I mean a lot. Everybody likes black pepper in their mashed potatoes around here. Now the spin I'm gonna put on these mashed potatoes is to add a little bit of prepared horseradish. It's not gonna add a really, really strong horseradish flavor. It'll just give it a little bit of tang, a little bit of zing. Okay, now I'll go in with a wooden spoon and just fold all of this together. My gosh. I can remember growing up watching my mom whip mashed potatoes right on the stovetop. She'd plug in her little electric beater and just whip away. I think if you mash them really well before you add all the other ingredients and get them nice and smooth, you don't really have to whip out the mixer. Plus, my boys were having a sword fight with my 2 beaters the other day, so I probably wouldn't be able to find them anyway. That looks so good. I want to give the potatoes a little bit of green. I'll add a good amount of minced parsley. The potatoes look absolutely wonderful. So now I just got to assemble the shepherd's pie. The stew has been cooking away. I let it cool a bit because that makes it easier to assemble a shepherd's pie. So I'll add big spoonfuls of this thick stew. Oh my gosh. It has cooked so perfectly. The beef is nice and tender, and it's actually starting to shred itself a little bit. One more big spoonful. Okay, that's all the stew. Now I'm going to carefully transfer the mashed potatoes right on top. I'm just using 2 spoons. I don't want to disturb the stew too much. So I'm just scraping big plops of the mashed potatoes all over the top. You know what would be great is if you made a batch of mashed potatoes for shepherd's pie and added in a little butternut squash so it had a little bit of a squashy flavor and color to it. I'm going to take a dinner knife and just carefully smear potatoes so they're mostly covering the stew. You can do little swirly designs. If you're fancy, you could even put the mashed potatoes into a piping bag. I am definitely not fancy, so I'm going to stick to just swirling it with a knife. Okay, the shepherd's pie is all done. I just got to pop it in the fridge, and it'll be ready for dinner later. With its crispy topping, everyone gets a great big helping with lots of the delicious stew and horseradish mashed potatoes.